Hello everybody, how you doing? This is Halloween. I am doing more videos of things that go bump in the night. Imagine you're in the Ozarks forest of Arkansas and something stalks you.
November 2012.
This is what happened.
Arkansas Oz.
This is what happened in November 2012 in Arkansas Ozarks. You were a soldier and carried a creature that you not know about and have been silenced to this day, but we should get to it, shall we? Let's join.
Ozarks. Just hunting, beer, and firelight. But the woods weren't right. Too quiet, too still. Locals had warned about something walking those hills in November. We laughed until the silence turned into a howl that shook the ridges. Something big was out there. It shadowed our steps. It knew our names. And before the weekend ended, not all of us came back. So before we continue, please make sure to like and subscribe to support the channel and comment down below where you're watching from. Thanks. I was in my mid-20s and bone tired. Scout platoon. A couple of tours. Dust still in my boots even after the plane ride home. I wanted quiet. Wanted trees and a fire and men I trusted inside arm's reach. No briefings. No chow hall chicken. No dumb smiles from some butter bar with a laminated safety card. Just brothers, a little beer, and a lot of nothing. Daniel set it up. Sergeant. Not our top, but might as well have been. Grizzled. Thick hands. The man had a built-in scowl like life owed him and never paid. He kept us tight. You could lean on him when the world spun. He said, "We got 4 days. We go to the Ozarks. We hunt. We fish. We sleep. We stop hearing the damn rotors in our dreams." Martinez was in before Daniels finished the sentence. Class clown. He could cuss in 3 languages and still make it sound like a hug. He carried a deck of cards with pinups from some thrift store and said they were lucky. They weren't, but he believed it, so that made it work half the time. Carter said yes because of the woods. He grew up there, knew every ridge and creek like they were cousins. Quiet guy, good eyes, the kind who points at a patch of brush and says, "There's a deer bedded down in there," and he's right. He shot clean and moved cleaner. Reed tagged along because he wanted in. Fresh out of training, boots still stiff. He laughed too loud and tried too hard, the way new guys do when they haven't learned how to be still yet. Eager as hell. I liked him. Reminded me of me before I learned better. We packed light, rifles for hunting, a couple of little handheld radios from a big box store, tents, cooler, coffee, some jerky, some beans, a cheap flare pistol because I am superstitious and hate dark woods. The truck smelled like oil and old leather. We rolled before first light, road humming, frost on the edges of the windshield. The hills grew up out of the world as we drove. Ridges stacking like folded blankets. Trees packed tight and tangled, leaves dead and slick on the switchbacks. The air had that wet bite. November. You breathe and it stings a little. Feels clean. Carter pointed at a sliver of water between the trunks. Creek's up, he said. Good sign for fishing. He told us about a ridge cut that goes to an old fire road and a camp spot with flat ground and a ring of rocks already there. We followed his memory deeper in. The truck crawled and groaned. Tires slid on damp leaves. We made it anyway. We set camp at a saddle where 2 fingers of ridge pinched a little hollow. Fire ring right where Carter said it would be. Pines held the wind. The trees looked like a crowd pressed close. All elbows in bark, needle whisper if you listened. Mist hung low, a gauze that moved when it felt like it and didn't when it didn't. You hear stuff out there, drips. A squirrel scolding. The far click of some branch knocking another when the breeze finds it. We built a fire. Daniels had the good fat wood and that mean little blade he kept sharp enough to shave hair without trying. He cut curls and fed flame, and we had heat in minutes. We pitched tents around the ring, doors facing inward. Old habit. It makes a circle, makes your brain say safe even when it isn't. We stacked our rifles where we could get them if we needed, and we didn't need them. Not yet. The day ran easy. Fishing line in the creek. Not much biting, but we were there for the rhythm, not the meat. Carter showed Reed how to read current around rocks. Martinez made a show of slipping on a mossy stone and going in calf deep, yelping like a kicked dog and making us all belly laugh. Daniel sat with a can of cheap beer, eyes far, watching us like he was counting. Not judging, just making sure it all added up to something good for once. By last light, we had meat on the grill. Not fancy. Just venison steaks Carter thawed and brought, salt and pepper, smoke doing the rest. The fire popped and threw sparks into the dark. We pulled our camp chairs close and leaned back like kings. Beer tasted better out there, even the bad stuff. Stories came easy. Not the big ones. Nobody tells the big ones at first. You tell the funny ones. The gun truck that never started until you kicked it in the same spot. The one sergeant who snored so loud you used him like a beacon when the power went out. The time the chow hall ran out of eggs and the whole company acted like the war was over and we lost. We ribbed each other. Called each other names we'd swing over if outsiders said them. That's love in the platoon. Sounds rough, but it's kindness in our language. The woods around us felt old. Not spooky, just older than our noise. Like we were little kids at a funeral trying to whisper and failing. The fire soothed. The beer smoothed edges. We ate and talked, and for a minute there, the world was small and good and simple. I could have slept right by the flames with my boots on and been fine. Daniels kicked dirt and fed the fire slow. He never really relaxed, but he smiled once, quick and almost shy, when Martinez blew on his steak like it was soup and yelped again when grease popped his lip. Reed leaned forward like he was catching it all and storing it, because he hadn't had enough years to know moments like this don't last, and that's what makes them good. It felt right. It felt earned. If horror is a hook, first you need something worth ripping out. We had that. Warmth. Laughter. A circle of men who'd hold the rope if you slipped. And we were dumb enough to think the trees were just trees. We stopped for gas on the way in, little station with 2 pumps and a roof held up by wishbones, cola cooler humming. Deer heads on the wall with glass eyes, dust on antlers. There was an old man by the register in a chair with the padding busted. Denim shirt, beard like smoke, eyes too sharp for his age. He watched us come in. 4 soldiers on leave, swaggering like we didn't know we were tired. He didn't smile. He didn't nod. He just looked like he was counting something we couldn't see. Daniels paid for gas and a bag of ice and a sleeve of foam cups. The old man said, "You boys hunting?" Carter said, "Yes, sir. Up past the ridge a ways." The old man's eyes went past him to the window, like he could see the line of hills from in there. He said, "Don't go up them hills in November." His voice had gravel like a county road. The howler walks. Martinez grinned. He couldn't help himself. He said, "Bigfoot got a cousin out here?" The old man didn't blink. He said, "Red eyes, horns sometimes. Sometimes not. Big. Mean. Smells like rot and old rain. Knows your name. Knows your fear." He looked at Reed when he said that, like he could smell newness. The boy straightened up and swallowed. Daniels nodded like you do when old folks tell you something and you were raised right. He said, "Appreciate the advice, sir. We'll keep to the clearings." The old man said, "Clearings ain't safe if he wants you." He said it without heat, like a fact, like telling us the price of ice. Then he leaned back and folded into himself and became furniture again. We laughed outside, of course. "Redneck ghost stories," Martinez said, like a punchline. He mimed horns with his fingers and did a bad, spooky voice. Carter didn't laugh. He said, "Folks out here see things," but he said it soft. He still pointed the truck uphill, so I figured even he didn't put much weight on it. First night in camp, the quiet found us in a way that didn't feel like rest. The Ozarks at night are supposed to talk. Crickets, owls calling like old women from across the holler, coyotes yipping like drunks. We got none of it. It was quiet like a closed mouth, like a held breath. Fire crackled, and it sounded loud as a mortar tube. I told myself we were early for the cold snap and the bugs had shut up. The mist thickened and thinned like it had a pulse. Reed sat with his knees up and the radio by his foot, listening to static. When he laughed at something Martinez said, it sounded wrong. Too sharp. Then the howl came. You know how some sounds you can place? You say, coyote. You say, bobcat. You say, that's wind in a pipe. This wasn't that. It was low at first. Then it climbed up through itself and split in the middle. Part scream, part roar, with the weight underneath like somebody dragging a chain through wet leaves. It got in my teeth. It vibrated the air. It felt older than the trees. It came from everywhere. Or maybe it came from one place and the hills threw it back at us until the circle closed. Daniels didn't flinch. He didn't smile either. He said, "Coyote's getting cute." Carter shook his head without meaning to. He'd heard coyotes all his life. He looked like a man smelling something gone off. Martinez cracked a joke about a big dog that missed chow, but his voice had a wobble. Reed didn't joke. He stared into the trees like they were staring back. The fire felt smaller. The dark felt closer. I told myself it was fine. I've told myself that a lot. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. We set watch because we always set watch. It's a habit that's part fear and part religion. You do it and you feel like you bought yourself a little luck. We split the night into slices. Reed took first because he asked for it. He wanted to show he wasn't dead weight. I woke to his whisper, not the words. The shape of them. The sound of a man not wanting to make a sound. I slid out of my bag and found my boots by feel, laced fast, grabbed my rifle. Reed knelt by the fire, one hand out like he was holding traffic. He pointed with his chin toward the tree line. 2 eyes. Red, not bright like LEDs. Not glowing like a trick, more like coals when you stir them and they find air. Set at a height that made my stomach dip. Too high for a coyote. Too far apart for a man. Too steady for a deer. They just looked at us, not blinking. Reed lifted the flashlight slow. When the beam hit the place, the eyes vanished. No scrape, no tail, no snort, just gone. The light found trees and mist and nothing else. He whispered, "You saw that, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I ain't nuts." I said, "Not for this. We didn't wake the others for eyes. You wake people for feet." We heard those later. Heavy, measured. Not crashing, not sneaking. Just circling. You could feel it through the ground like the drum line at a game on base. Brush swished. Branches clicked. Once, something took a breath deep enough to push the air on my face. We didn't shoot. You don't shoot at sounds unless you're panicked or stupid, and we were neither. We sat and listened and pretended we couldn't count the steps getting closer, then farther, then close again. Martinez muttered a prayer in Spanish. Daniels laid his hand on the butt of his rifle and kept his eyes on the dark. Carter watched with that hunter's face. Calm and mad at the same time. Sleet came in chunks. Morning came like somebody pulled a gray sheet off the trees. We walked the perimeter because that's what you do when something walks around your house at night. Tracks. Too big. Paw-like, sure, but wrong. Too wide. Claws dug deep like someone stabbed the ground with a set of knives and leaned into it. The impressions were heavy. Moist dirt slicked back like it tried to hold the weight and failed. They went around us in a lazy loop. Sometimes they overlapped as if it had paused and shifted. I don't like when prey paces. I like it less when what's pacing ain't prey. High up, a branch snapped. Not cracked, not bent. Snapped and hanging like a broken arm. Too high for a bear to reach unless the bear stacked rocks and climbed, and bears don't do that. Bark rubbed away in long streaks like something tall dragged a shoulder through and didn't care how it hurt. Daniel stood over a print with his hands on his hips. He said, "Big bear maybe, the kind that taught the other bears how to eat coolers." His voice said he didn't buy it either, but he had to give us a box to put it in, or we'd start building our own. Carter squatted, studying. He poked a claw mark with a stick. He said, "No bear I've hunted walks like that." He didn't look up when he said it. He looked like a man reading bad news slowly. We ate breakfast heavy and quiet. Coffee didn't taste like anything. The creek spoke a little, like it hadn't decided if it should keep talking to us at all. The mist waited in the hollows like a thing with patience. Day 2, we hunted. Or, we tried. The woods didn't want us to. No birds. No squirrels. No deer tracks fresh enough to bother with. The air felt like it does before lightning. Like your skin knows something's coming and wants to shrink away from it. We walked single file on game trails. Martinez usually ran his mouth on walks. He'll tell you how he'd gut and cook a squirrel with a lighter and a paper clip just to make you gag. He didn't talk. He kept looking over his shoulder like there was a sergeant back there checking his pace. The silence got inside our steps. We tried loose banter. It died. Even jokes feel like a sin when the woods are listening. We stopped by a rock outcrop for water. You could see across a small hollow and up another ridge. The trees on the far side looked normal until they didn't. The whole line shivered and then went still like they had nerves. We turned back toward camp near dusk. The light went old and yellow and then slid blue. The fire pit was black bones. We got a flame going fast because the dark had teeth. That smell came with the dark. You know rot when you smell it. This was rot with a wet edge, like a garbage bag torn open in rain. It rode low, pushed in under the fire smoke. It made my tongue taste like pennies. Then the howl again. Closer. It cracked the valley wide open. It climbed, split, and dropped in our chests like a fist. The trees seemed to flinch. The fire snapped hard like it wanted to go out. A tree went down near enough to make us salute it without thinking. The sound was wrong. Not wind. Not age. It was like something shoved it because it was in the way. Branches clawed the air. Leaves exploded wet. When it hit, the ground jumped, and our chairs shivered. Reed's brain snapped like a twig. He fired. 3 fast pops into darkness at chest height. The muzzle flash bit our eyes. The bullet slapped wood somewhere out there, and then we got silence so thick it whistled. Another howl came. Not the same spot. It had a twist in it this time, like a laugh. It was the sound bullies make when they like what you just did because it means you're weak. Daniels moved us like he was back on patrol. He took the stupid out and put discipline in its place. He said, "We're not food. We're not lost. We're a team." He set watch again, strict shifts. He made us check radios, check ammo, check water, check each other. He made the world small and square. That helps. It doesn't fix it, but it helps. At midnight, Carter hissed from his post. We came up low. He pointed with his whole arm, slow and sure. A shape between trunks. Too wide through the chest. Too tall when it straightened. Then it dropped to all fours and moved. Not like an animal breaking into a run. More like a person who remembered how to be a beast. It slid fast, quiet, wrong. It covered ground the way nightmares do, too much too quick. The light from the coals made it a shadow, the kind of shadow that has weight. It was gone in a breath, and the brush settled like a bed after a fat man gets up. We didn't sleep more than crumbs after that. The cold found every seam in our jackets. The radio stayed quiet like even the batteries were scared to speak. Dawn came late and stingy. We saw it full that night. The hill held the moon like a pale coin, and the mist backed off just enough, like whatever runs this world wanted us to have the courtesy of seeing what would kill us. It came from the left, between 2 pines that had grown too close to each other and fused. First the eyes. Coals waking up, then the head, wolf-shaped, but heavier through the muzzle. The forehead looked like somebody had taken a ram's crown and stapled it there. Curved horns swept back and then forward, fur matted gray and black in the color of road grime. The breath steamed and stank, and in it was the wet stink of something that eats what it kills where it kills it. It stood up on its hind legs, and it wasn't a man. It was taller than any man I'd stand near. Over 8 feet by my dumb gut guess, but don't trust my numbers in that moment. All I know is I had to lean my head back to keep eyes on the eyes. Arms too long. Claws long as knives and curved like they'd been sharpened on bone. Reed made a sound like he'd dropped a cinder block on his foot. Martinez said something like a prayer, but it wasn't any prayer I'd heard cleanly. More like a rush of scared words trying to be a shield. Daniels didn't say a word. He lifted his rifle and squeezed. We all did. The night broke into flashes. The creature moved like the bullets told it where they'd be, and it didn't feel like being there. It twisted and swayed and took a step that ate space. We hit it. I know we did. You know the sound of hits. It flinched once, and the sound that came out of it wasn't pain. It was anger like a door slam. It howled between shots. The howl stepped down our spines like boots on stairs. My ears rang and rang. The radios crackled by themselves, static spiking like they had a fever. I popped the flare. The little pistol barked, and a ball of day shot up and hung, hissing. Red light rolled over the trees. The thing's face went from shape to fact. Teeth too many and set wrong, like a smile made by a drunk knife. Foam hung at the corners of the mouth. The horns looked grown, not strapped, rooted in skull. The eyes hated us the way a sinkhole hates a foot. Not personal. Just a job it knows well. We expected charge. You think of big animals and you think they close like a truck. It didn't. It paced. back and forth at the edge of our circle like a shark. It looked from man to man like it had a pencil and a little pad and it was taking notes. We shot more because that's what you do when something impossible stares at you like you're the impossible one. Chips came off bark. The flare sizzled out and the dart came back hard. The beast slipped into it like it had somewhere to be, and we were suddenly alone with what we saw. Martinez whispered without meaning to, "It's not hunting deer. It's hunting us." His voice sounded thin, like he'd used most of it up on jokes and didn't save enough for fear. We didn't chase. That would have been suicide dumb. We tightened our circle until elbows touched. Daniels assigned sectors like a range tower instructor with a sore throat. We waited for the next move, and the next one didn't come. Not then. The worst ones never rush. They make you pay in minutes before they ask for blood. We decided to move at first light. No vote. Just a quiet understanding. The woods didn't want us, and we didn't want to be there when whatever owned them decided to collect rent. We packed fast. You can break a camp like that in minutes when you don't care what you leave behind. We took rifles, water, the radios, a couple of bars, a map. Sleeping bags got left. Chairs got left. Carter looked at the fire ring like he was saying sorry to it. We stepped off on the fire road that was no road at all, just two ruts and old memory. The mist slid out ahead of us and then back behind like curtains. The trees stood closer than they had before, like someone had nudged them together while we slept. We heard it start shadowing us almost right away. Footsteps that matched ours a beat late. When we stopped, it stopped. When we went, it went. Twigs snapped just off the path the way your little brother mirrors you to make you mad. It wasn't a game though. It felt like a man tapping his spoon on the table because dinner's late. The smell moved with us. Sometimes it went thin. Sometimes it pushed in like a hand over your mouth. Every time we thought it faded, it found a low place in the land and pooled there to wait. The howl came from the left, then from the right, then ahead, then behind, then behind. The valley threw it around and the thing helped it along. It sounded like more than one at times. It sounded like the whole ridgeline had found a throat. We kept it together until the voices. That's where things went from bad to wrong. We heard Reed first. Except Reed was right in front of me. I was watching the back of his head, the little fuzz where his barber missed a spot before we left base. And I heard him from the trees to our right saying, "Over here, guys." I found something. It was Reed's pitch and shape. It was his breath caught halfway through the word, like he always did when he started a sentence too fast. But it wasn't him. Reed stopped dead. The real Reed. He made a small sound, like a pup nose, bumping a dead thing and not understanding. Then we heard Martinez from the left, bright and stupid like he made it on purpose. "Guys, you gotta see this." Carter squeezed my shoulder hard enough to grind bone. Daniel said, "Keep moving. Quiet. Do not answer." His voice was a robe. The mimicry kept pace. Our names came out of the trees like coins spit from a slot. Sometimes my own. Sometimes Daniel's. Sometimes all four in a row like a roll call. It got the vowels right, and the vowels are the soul of a man's voice. It started tossing little things in the trail. A stick that had to be placed just so. A clump of hair caught on bark at chest level like a man had brushed against it. Once, a feather that was too clean for the thing that dropped it. Reed lost step. He was shaking small. You could feel it in the way his boots hit the ground. He turned his head when the woods said his name in his mother's lilt. We didn't break formation, not then. We held the line because you hold the line or you die. The scream still came. It came from behind, back of the column. Reed had drifted without me seeing. He was 10 paces back now and his face was gone to panic, and that's when the trees took him. Not the trees. The thing in them. A blur and a pull, and Reed was off the trail in 3 heartbeats, and his scream was the kind men make when the body knows something the brain won't accept. We spun. We rushed. Because that's what you do even when you know it's the wrong play. We got to the edge and saw where he went. Blood spattered low. Not a bucket. Not movie messy. Just real. Real blood has a smart way of being in the wrong places. His vest hung in 2 strips from a branch like a flag somebody cut out because they hated what it stood for. Claw marks dug into the trunk in parallel lines too deep for anything with normal muscle. The ground was scuffed and torn, and then it was nothing. like somebody erased the trail with a wide thumb. We called. Yes, we did. We broke the rule and shouted his name because we loved him, and love makes you loud and dumb, and that's fine. The trees answered back with his voice. Over here, real small. Then farther left. Over here, and then ahead, guys. I'm fine. And that's when Daniel saved us by being a bastard. He said, we move. Right now. He grabbed my collar and shoved me forward like I was a private who forgot left from right. His face was gray. His eyes were sharp. He said low, it's playing with us, like a cat with mice. And we went. You never get over leaving someone. You don't. You learn how to walk with it clamped to your ribs. We moved because staying would have been suicide and dying next to his vest would not have been loyalty. It would have been stupidity dressed up as love. We moved fast and wrong through brush that slapped and clawed. The voices trailed us. The smell ran ahead. The light got weird, blue-green under the pines like aquarium water. Every step waited to trip us. The radios hissed and spat one word, fragments that meant nothing and made everything worse. By the time the trailhead was close, we were stripped down to wire. No jokes. No breath to waste. The trees grew tall and then leaned over the path like a tunnel. That's where it decided to end the game. The valley tightened. Ridge on both sides like pews. The trail cut straight, crushed leaves slick underfoot. The truck was less than a mile if I trusted the map in my head. We heard a low growl ahead, a thing that didn't want to be a sound so much as a feeling. It shook my shirt against my skin. It stepped into the path. No sneaking. No shadow trick. It wanted us to see and it wanted us to know it wanted that. Chest like a log. Shoulders roped with muscle that looked wrong, like rope grown under skin. Head cocked like a dog that's about to bite the hand that feeds it because the hand trembled. Eyes red. Horns catching the little light like whetstone. Claws tapping once on a rock as it picked its foot up and put it down. The smell made my stomach pitch. It smiled, and that's the part people think I made up. It smiled. Not humor. Not friendliness. Just a lot of teeth rearranged to say, I can take this away from you. We didn't freeze. We are soldiers. Even on leave, the body knows where to point, where to move. We fanned, low, rifles up. Daniels called contact the way he would in a street, sharp and clipped. We opened, like a door, and gave it everything we had to give. The rifles cracked relentless. You can hear the difference between panic fire and fire with purpose. This wasn't panic. We walked rounds in, adjusted, compensated. Bark blew behind it. Tufts of fur danced like ash. Some hits sank, I'll swear to it. But the thing came anyway. Not mindless. Not flailing. It moved with a patience that made my heart commit treason. I threw a flare at its feet. It hopped back, quick and neat, like a boxer bluffing. I emptied a magazine and slid in another, and my hands did that smooth like they'd done it too many times to fumble. It came then. It chose. It covered 10 yards like water poured. Martinez to my left shouted a word I didn't know, and the beast's arm scythed. He went up, not down, like a snare pulled him. 1 second he was there, boots slipping for a better stance. Next second he was a man dragged sideways into green-black, his screen cut off like a wire snipped. Daniels moved like he'd been shot before and expected it again. He put himself between the thing and the rest of us without drama. It raked him. 3 lines across the ribs. Blood poured bright and wicked. He stayed on his feet because he didn't know how to fall with us watching. We backed, firing. Carter grabbed Daniels' belt and I grabbed his collar and we hauled. The beast paced at the edge of the trees again like it enjoyed this part. The part where it erased parts of our life and made us carry the holes. I had one more trick. Not a grenade. We weren't idiots. But we did carry a couple of loud training bangers Carter got from a buddy who trained dogs. Little cylinders that flash and boom without shrapnel. I yanked a ring with my teeth like a movie idiot because my hands were busy, and I let it roll. The bang hit the valley and came back twice, 3 times, and the beast rocked back a hair. Not hurt, just offended. Sometimes that's enough. We broke through the last line of pines like falling out a door. The trail spat us into the little gravel lot where our truck sat like a faithful dog. Keys were already in my pocket because some part of me had been living in that spot for an hour. I flung the door. Carter shoved Daniels across the bench seat. I fell in and started the engine, and it coughed and then clawed like it wanted to show off. We shot backward, rocks spitting, and then jammed forward onto the road. The truck bucked and slid and did not care for our fear, but it went. Headlights slashed trees into bars. We hit a dip, and the back end danced. Carter braced Daniels' head from the window. Blood made a lake in his lap. I looked up once because I am a fool, and I wanted to know if the world still existed beyond the hood. On the ridge above the road, perfectly framed in the cones of our light, the howler stood, silhouette sharp as a cut, horns etched against sky. It lifted its head and opened its throat, and the howl exploded. The glass shook. The dashboard rattled. My filling sang. It wasn't a chase sound. It was a send-off, like a host seeing you to the door and saying, "Come again." It watched us leave because it chose to, not because we made it. I drove until the trees thinned and the mist gave up and the road became something made by men again. My hands left wet prints on the wheel. The radio hissed, then died. None of us spoke until we saw a porch light that wasn't ours. We pulled into a volunteer firehouse lot because red doors felt like safe in that moment. I think I cried. Not big and pretty. Just a leak from the corners while I held the wheel like it was a throat I could choke. Carter climbed out slow and came around and took me by the wrist and made me let go. Daniel sat upright like a statue with a crack. His shirt was soaked and stuck. He wouldn't let the medics cut it off right away because the shirt had a patch he cared about. And then he let them because he remembered living was better than a souvenir. He kept saying, "We lost too." He said it like a cadence. He said it like he was building a wall with words to keep the rest of himself from coming apart. Carter didn't say a thing to anyone. He stood outside the ambulance with his hands on his head and watched the tree line across the little two-lane like it might walk closer. He had a smear of Reed's blood on his cheek and didn't know, and I didn't tell him because I wanted him to live that last hour without that fact if he could. Cops came. Then some game warden types with shiny boots. Then a man in a jacket that had no name on it, just a badge like a mirror. We told one story and then another because that's how it goes. You think if you tell a different one time it will change what's true. We said lost in the woods. We said attacked by a big animal. We said a bear, maybe. The badge nodded the way people nod when they want you to shut up and go away clean enough to wash. By the time the sun got high and thin, the official story had a shape. Training accident. Don't laugh. That's the phrase they use when they want us to swallow the lie without chewing. 2 men missing in the Ozarks. Search underway. The crews would go out with bright vests and bright helmets and bright hope. They would find torn brush and maybe some hair on a limb, and they'd write that down in a notebook with a ballpoint pen. And then the world would move on because the world likes moving on. They wrote our names down. They told us to rest. They called in a chaplain who looked 18 and had pure eyes, and I wanted to hit him because he didn't deserve to see this, and I didn't deserve the calm he tried to hand me. I shook his hand and said thanks, and he said, "God walks with you," and I wanted to say, not where we were, he didn't. Daniels healed enough to leave, and then he left for good. He took his pension and a little scar that looked like someone tried to write their name in his ribs, and he limped into a small life somewhere flat. He mailed me once, a short letter, said he was fishing and mostly not thinking, and that was progress. Carter quit the whole business. He dug fence posts and fixed roofs and didn't go into the woods unless he had to. He said the trees were still his, but he wasn't theirs anymore, and I understood that even if the words are sideways, sometimes you survive by cutting a piece off. Sometimes you survive by giving up a place. Me, I stayed a while longer. It's what I knew. I'd lie awake on base and hear the rotors my brain manufactured, and then under that, I'd hear the howl if the night got quiet enough. Not loud, not full, just the shape of it, like a knife edge touching a tooth. I slept with a radio on low so the static would fill the space where memory tries to creep in. I walked perimeter on my own sometimes, pacing the chain link like a ghost that forgot what it was haunting for. They never found Martinez. They never found Reed. They became names on a sheet and then names in a voice call, and then names said at a formation with heads bowed. We drank to them in a dark bar with a jukebox that ate dollars and wouldn't play what we picked. We told the funny stories for a while because it keeps the dead near. Then we ran out and the quiet came, and that's when the real missing began. I don't go back to Arkansas. People ask why sometimes like the state owes me a good weekend and I won't take it. I say the fishing's better elsewhere. I say I got bad memories. I don't say there's a thing that walks up there in November with eyes like coals and a laugh like a break in the world. I don't say it knows my name because it used it, and it will use it again if I give it the chance. You want to know the worst part? It wasn't the blood or the scream or the way the woods learned our voices fast. It was the look it gave us when we ran, not hunger, not madness. It looked like a mean kid outside a school fence, knowing you have to pass him to get home. It looked patient, like time was on its side, like it had watched men come and go since before a road cut that valley, and it would watch after we were bones in some fox den. I tell this around fires sometimes. I don't tell it to scare. I tell it to empty the tank in my chest that fills up if I leave it alone. I tell it because sometimes a man needs to hear his own voice say the truth. The truth is simple and ugly. We faced bombs that rip a truck open like a soda can. We faced ambushes so tight the bullets were a wall. We faced men trying hard to make us not exist. None of it looked at us the way that thing did. None of it hunted us like an equal. If you go up there when the map says it's the wrong month, and the crickets forget to sing, and the owls keep their mouths shut, and the air smells like wet meat, and you hear your buddy calling from the trees while he's standing right next to you, don't be brave. Don't be curious. Keep your feet on the trail. Keep your words in your mouth. If you get to your truck and you got the little bit of luck it takes, don't look up at the ridge. If you do, and you see horns cut the sky and eyes bright like someone touched a brand to them, and you hear a howl that you'll carry to whatever place comes after this one, drive. At night on base, when the generator settled and the last joke died between bunks, I'd lie there with my hands folded like a guy who never learned how to pray trying to fake it. I'd close my eyes and the woods would bloom behind them. Mist, trees like a crowd, a circle of men around a fire, living right for once, and then the shape between the trunks, the red eyes, the breath, the way the dark opened and made room. Sometimes I wake and the room is bright with nothing and the air is thin and clean and I can hear traffic on the highway outside the fence and I think, that's just a story. Then a sound comes up through the floor of me. Not loud, a memory of loud. It climbs and splits and settles in the teeth. A howl built from the bones of the hills. I breathe. I let it pass. It doesn't pass. It never does. It just goes quiet and waits, the way patient things do. That's all. That's the truth as I have it. Don't go up them hills in November. The howler walks. If you forget and you go anyway, and if it decides to count you, you'll know. The woods will go quiet. The smell will come. The night will take your voice and give it back to you from the wrong place. And if you're lucky, if you're fast, if it's not hungry for you in particular that day, you'll get to leave. And while you drive, you'll see it on the ridge. And it will not chase. It will watch. Because it knows November comes every year, and men are dumb enough to keep coming too. So that's the end of our video. If you made it this far, make sure to hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free. And if you want more terrifying encounters like this one, check out the other videos on screen right now. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there. See you soon.
That goes to show you that there are things that we should not be messing with. There are things so pure evil that nature prevents us from going there. There are things that our government knows about but keeps hiding. Because why? Because they don't want us to know about it. Knowledge is power. Power is knowledge. If you know something has been evil, then you don't need to be there. Enjoy.